Every evening, so many new parents fall into the same painful cycle. As the evening progresses, their baby becomes increasingly fussy. Seeing tired signs at around 7 or 8 p.m, they decide it's time for bed. So they get them ready and settle them off to sleep and pray that they'll stay sound asleep for at least a few hours. But 20 to 30 minutes later, if they're lucky, their baby is awake again. So they go in, maybe to give them another feed or put that pacifier back in their mouth and rock them back to sleep, only to have the exact same thing happen again just a few minutes later. This leads to a seemingly never-ending cycle that happens for hours until the baby finally falls asleep sometime after 11 p.m. This cycle leads to so much unnecessary stress and anxiety for parents, as well as just pure frustration. And the truth is, it doesn't have to be this way. You can break out of this cycle or avoid falling into it in the first place, and I'm going to show you how in this video. But to do that, first you need to understand why this is happening in the first place. There are two main reasons. First, the period of fussiness your baby experiences in the evenings is not necessarily an indication that they're ready for bed. It could be part of a normal developmental phase called the period of purple crying. This phase begins at around 2 weeks of age, and parents often notice that their newborn becomes fussier or more challenging to soothe in late afternoons and evenings. And this fussiness gradually increases and peaks between 6 to 8 weeks of life, and then it will slowly decrease before stopping at around 3 to 4 months of age. During this period, it's extremely common for newborns to fall asleep briefly and then wake and want to be held, cluster fed, or suck on a pacifier. Second, newborns naturally have a late bedtime. In fact, for most babies, a normal bedtime is anywhere between 10 p.m. and midnight during the first few months of life. So to avoid the trap of getting into this cycle of bedtime false starts, try to embrace that late bedtime for now. Rather than trying really hard and stressing for hours to get them to sleep, simply wait until later in the night to put them down. And in the meantime, try soothing them in alternative ways during their fussy period. For example, you could offer your little one a pacifier or encourage them to suck on their fingers, as the act of sucking is actually soothing for a newborn. Or you could carry or wear them in a baby carrier. You could let them nap on you, or you could let them cluster feed if they're breastfeeding, or pace feed if you're bottle feeding. Rest assured that this is only temporary, as your newborn's bedtime will gradually become more consistent and shift to an earlier time by around 3 months of age, and the period of purple crying will also fade at this point. Once you do get your little one down to sleep for the night, it is highly likely that they're going to wake during the night for a feed. And when that happens, you're going to want to get them back to sleep as quickly and as easily as possible afterwards. So to do that, there are a couple of things you need to make sure you avoid, which will unintentionally keep them awake for far longer than necessary. First of all, you may have noticed that your newborn tends to doze off while feeding. This is normal, as the act of sucking is calming and the hormones released during feeding makes your baby drowsy, causing them to drift back to sleep. However, you've also likely noticed that your newborn wakes up when you burp them or change their diaper. And that's because these activities can be really stimulating for a newborn and may rouse them from their sleep. What many people don't realize is that sometime between 6 to 8 weeks, newborns typically stop having bowel movements during the night. And at this point, they don't need their diaper changed until morning. Moreover, not all newborns need to be burped. In fact, in some cultures, burping isn't even practiced. In fact, a randomized controlled trial found that burping doesn't impact a baby's fussiness and may actually increase the likelihood of spitting up. In addition to avoiding these stimulating activities, it's important to keep overnight interactions to a minimum. This means avoiding playing with your little one, keeping light to a minimum, and refraining from watching TV. If you do need some entertainment to keep you awake, consider watching something on your mobile device with the brightness turned down and the headphones in. By minimizing interactions and leaving those wet diapers until morning, as well as potentially skipping burping, your newborn is more likely to fall back to sleep promptly during feeding. And this allows you to get back to sleep quickly as well. Something else that greatly impacts your baby's sleep is their total sleep requirement based on their age. The number of naps, the timing of those naps, and the total amount of sleep they need each day is constantly changing as part of your baby's normal development. So it's really important to understand what to expect at each age and how to adjust their schedule. To help with that, I've created a new parent's guide to naps that outlines the number of naps and total sleep requirements your baby will need at each month. If you'd like to download a copy for free, I've included a link to that in the description box below this video. Now, something else you really want to avoid at night and during daytime naps is accidentally waking your newborn up prematurely. This is an easy mistake to make as your newborn's sleep patterns and behaviours are quite different to those of adults. Newborns spend a significantly larger portion of their sleep in REM sleep, which is crucial for their brain development. But unlike adults who experience sleep paralysis during REM sleep, newborns don't have this protective mechanism. As a result, they're more likely to move and make noises, or even cry out, grunt, laugh, or smile during these phases of sleep. When you hear these noises, it's easy to assume your newborn is awake, leading you to go and pick them up. However, if they're still asleep, picking them up actually causes them to wake up, whereas if you left them, they would have continued to sleep. In addition to unintentionally causing more wakes during the night, if you continue to regularly wake them up when they're still sleeping, you risk creating a habit where your baby will start waking up more frequently. And this is because they get used to more regular feeds or having you there to comfort them during the night. So to avoid this, it's essential to be patient and observe when your newborn starts making noises in their sleep. Allow a few moments to determine whether your baby is genuinely awake or merely transitioning between sleep cycles. You'll know if they're genuinely awake because the noises will get louder and more frequent and may even turn into a cry. On the other hand, if they're still sleeping, the noises will gradually decrease and become more spaced out. By taking a moment to pause and listen, you can avoid disturbing their sleep unnecessarily and ensure that you and your baby enjoy more restful nights. Creating a sleep-friendly environment is another effective way to improve your little one's sleep during the night and for their day naps. So to learn how to optimize their sleep environment, click here to watch this video next. In it, I'll walk through everything you need to achieve the ideal sleep environment for your baby, including what you need, how to set it up, and common mistakes to avoid. This simple setup doesn't cost a fortune and can drastically improve your baby's sleep quality.